Shalom, Shalom Israel, Salakia. Shalom Israel. We're the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge. Start out at 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York, under commanding General Yohana. It's the Friday night Lashawan Qadash class where we break down the scriptures from a linguistics perspective. I mean, we do what your Christian pastors, these fake Israelite groups, these Christian Israelite groups that aim to lead you, away from your culture. I mean, we do what they can't do. I mean, all these different denominations of Christianity that aim to, to just push this distorted doctrine that has nothing to do with the Bible. We do what they can't do. And the reason why, a big reason why these Christian churches, aside from them just being outright snakes, but a big reason why, even if a sincere brother or a sincere sister went into the Christian church and tried to learn the truth according to the Bible, they couldn't learn it if they tried. Big reason for that is because you have to start with this language. You can't understand the context of a book written about a particular people and their culture and their language without understanding who those people are, what their culture was, and what the language they spoke. And the language you're trying to translate from. You just can't do it, which is why, even though, there may be some sincere brothers in the Christian church, there may be some sincere brothers and sisters in these, Christian Israelite groups, but you just won't be able to understand it without if you don't come into the ISUPK and get taught, from the home of the truth, from the priests and prophets who held on to this truth, when there was nothing, we didn't know who we were in the earth, But if you don't come into the home of the truth and learn who you are, according to the Bible, from the prophets who laid down this foundation since 1969, you just won't understand. All right. But with that, if you got any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. Any questions or topics in the room that you want to cover, you go ahead and raise your hand and we'll cover those as well. Salaki, let me get this out of here. All right. Well, yeah, if you got any questions online, just go ahead and put them in the chat and I'll get to them as soon as possible. And you might get a reply. If you put a question in the chat, you might get a reply a little bit later in your inbox. So just check your notifications. Make sure you do that. Make sure you like and share the class. Subscribe to whatever social media platform that you watching on. So that just like you found the truth and came in, changed your life, and discovered who you were. Who we are as a people. Share whatever class, share the class that you're watching on whatever platform you're watching it on, so that other brothers and sisters can, get the same thing that you got. All right. So last week we went into, I believe we went into what are we going to? Salakia. The thing that we ended class with last week was the past tense conjugations of verbs. All right. And the reason why I wanted to go into that was, we've been talking about it for a while. How important it is. I've been wanting to go into it for a while. We've been talking about it. I've been mentioning it. It's been popping up in the scriptures, and I've had to explain it. But last week we finally went into it. And that's going to be important for you to be able to identify, because it'll help you. First off, it'll help you it'll keep you from getting tripped up when you see certain things. Like, for example, when we was going over the prepositions, we was talking about the tha, right? We was talking about tha and how tricky it could be. If you're not familiar with how it's used, like a lot of times you'll see, you can see tha at the beginning of a root word, meaning thou or thee. You might see tha at the end of a root word. It could mean pluralization in the sense of categories, like how you have different categories of fathers, right? So instead of pluralizing father to say fathers instead of pluralizing it. The usual, the usual pluralization tense, which is yum. We're familiar with that. Instead of seeing that, you'll see tha at the end of abba. To indicate pluralization in the sense of categories. Like you don't have more than one father. It's impossible for you to have more than one father. All right. So to indicate pluralization, it'll have the tha at the end to indicate categories. Like you have a father, you have your birth father, and then you have your grandfather, and then you have your great grandfather, and then you have your forefathers, and so on and so forth. You know what I mean? So again, like when you see that tha, that's going to be from what I've seen off the top of my head, that's going to be the most tricky one. You see tha at the beginning, it could mean thou or thee. You see tha at the end, and it could mean categories, or it could also mean thou or thee, depending on the context, depending on how it's used. You look at the word atha, that tha is at the end, and atha means you, right? It's the formal way to say you, right? But the reason why you see that tha in so many different places, just so you don't get tripped up, a lot of it has to do with tenses. Past, present, and future tense. So that's why I wanted to go over that. Because in a lot of times when brothers and sisters see these characters at the end of words, we don't really know how to pronounce them. So we just going off of what we know, which is fine. That's perfect. You just go off of what you know. You know this. Like we go over the 4 steps of how to break down any phrase in the Hebrew. The best thing for you to do, especially when you're first starting out and you're trying to get a grasp of the language, is to stick to those 4 steps. And that's going to help you learn and grow and, build your foundation and learning your language. But certain things are going to seem a little, seem a little unusual, to say the least, right? And that's where you get your questions from. When you see those things that don't quite fit what you understand, or don't quite follow the rules that you learned to build your foundation, then you ask those questions, and then that's going to help you build your foundation. All right. But a lot of times brothers will use that foundation, those 4 steps, and then they'll see, because they, like last week, we used the example of King Solomon's name, right? King Solomon's name in Hebrew is Shalamah, right? So it's shalom, which is the root word for peace, and a ha at the end, right? A servile tense. So when there's a servile tense at the end of a root word, it adds that soft that ha sound. So it goes from shalom to shalamah, right? To say King Solomon's name. Now to say her peace, you would just add the possessive to the end of the root word. So to say her peace, it would be shalom ha, right? And the difference when you look at it in the scriptures, when you look at it in Bible Hub, which we're going to get into in a little bit, but when you look at it on Bible Hub, you won't know the difference unless you know the context of what we're talking about. And that's why also looking at that English at the bottom is important, because it's going to give you the context. But that's just one example of, you could see a word spelled the exact same way, but in 2 different contexts, it's pronounced different, right? So if it's talking about King Solomon's name, or peace in a servile tense, or peaceful, which is what his name means, it'll be shalamah. But if you're looking at that same spelling, sha, la, ma, and ha next to each other, but it's saying her peace, it'll be shalom ha, right? But that's why I wanted to go into this lesson, because knowing past, present, or future tense is going to give you just another layer to be able to identify what the context is and how you pronounce words, right? And just to do a little review. So Salakia. Well, I'll wait on that. But just to do a little review, so past tense, right? We use the example of shamar. As a matter of fact, let me go down there and let me go ahead and turn the camera, and then we'll come back up here. All right, so these are the notes that we took last week. All right, if you don't have these in your notes now, I would advise brothers and sisters to go ahead and get them in your notes. You know what I mean, as soon as possible. Right, because again, it's gonna be something that's gonna help you. Right, it's gonna be something that's gonna help you understand the Hebrew and understand how to pronounce certain things in different contexts. All right. All right, so we was talking about past tense, which is ibar in the Hebrew. And the root word that we were practicing with was shamar. I mean, I chose shamar because shamar is a root word that we all pretty much familiar with and we use pretty consistently. Whether you a Hebrew teacher or you part of the Sabbath service department or not. Everybody in the school knows what the word shamar means or understands what the word shamar is related to. I mean, even if you don't know what it means, you've heard the word shamar, you use the word shamar. So that's the word that we went with. Shamar just means watch, right? So that's why the word shamar is associated with the brothers that's on in the shamar department or the security department, all right? Because the brothers in the security department watch. I mean, they watch over the school, they watch over the brothers, they watch over the sisters. You know what I mean? All right, so that's what that word means. So brothers and sisters, you know what I mean? If you wasn't familiar with what that word actually means, a lot of brothers, you ask brothers what does shamar mean. A lot of sisters, you ask brothers and sisters what shamar means. They'll just say security because it's related to, you know what I mean? It's related to the brothers that secure the school. But the word at its root means watch. All right, but that's the word that we used last week. And then also these words we went over a couple weeks ago, preparing for this lesson. All right, like I said, we've been talking about this lesson for a couple months now. All right, and I gave y'all these words a couple weeks ago. So anya, right? Anya is how you would say I in the Hebrew. You, atha, like we just went over a second ago. He, hawa'ah, right? She, haya'ah, right? We, anaknoah, right? Y'all, a thone. And they, home, right? Those words are important because it's going to give you the context. This is where you're going to get your context from, right? So first context indicator, the first thing that's going to give you a hint of where the context is the tense, whether we're talking about past, present, or future tense. All right. So that's one thing you want to look out for. Are we talking about past tense, present tense, future tense? All right. And then the second indicator, just for this lesson only. All right. But the second indicator for this particular lesson is who we're talking about or from whose perspective, right? So is it coming from I, you, he, she, we, y'all, or they, right? So that's what you want to look at. And then that's going to tell you what conjugation you're going to use or if you're reading, what conjugation you're going to see in the scriptures. So using the word shamar, right? If we're talking about shamar means watch, right? Now we're talking about past tense. So in English, to make watch past tense, you would add an ed, which will make it watched. So I watched, right? So to say I watched would be anya, shamar, and then you'll add this conjugation at the end in the parentheses, thaya. So anya shamar just means I watch, present tense. I watch, or just general tense, because present tense will be watching, Salaki. But the general tense would just be I watch with no past, present, or future tense attached to it. But once you add this conjugation, thaya, that makes it past tense. All right, you can do that with any word. So to say I learned, so learn, the word for learn is lamad, right? Like we went over with the pictographs. All right. And just a sidebar, you can practice with any of those pictographs or any of the words, any verb rather, Salakia, that you've come across or seen or learned in past classes, or thing that you just read in Bible Hub. All right, and I encourage brothers to do that, so that brothers and sisters to do that, so that you can be familiar with it. All right, so that you can practice, be familiar with it, and digest this language. All right, but if you want to replace the root word with instead of saying I watched, you want to say I learned. Right, so you will replace the root word from shamar to lamad. Right, so now you're saying I learned is anya lamad thaya. Right, but that thaya indicates past tense from a first person perspective. So first person will be me. I'm first person. I'm first person. You're second person. And then if me and you are talking about somebody else, that's third person. All right. But if you want to say I learned from a first person perspective, then you would say anya lamad thaya. All right. And then you, atha, right? Atha, shamar, to say you watch. So I'm not talking about first person anymore. Now I'm talking about second person, because I'm talking about you. So if I say you learned, it'll be atha, or slakia. If I want to say you watched, it'll be atha, shamar, tha. Right, and this is what I was talking about. I know I went over it last week, but I'm gonna just do a brief recap before we go back into Bible Hub and read a little bit. But this is what I was talking about a second ago. Like context will tell you how to pronounce words, right? So if you see shamar tha in the scriptures, you'll see shamar with a tha at the end. So you'll want to pronounce it shamaraf, right? I see a lot of brothers and sisters doing that. The context is going to tell you that this is shamar tha, right? Because if you're talking about a second person past tense perspective, it'll be atha, shamar tha, right? Now, if it was talking about categories or like levels, I guess, of shamar, I've never seen shamaraf in the scriptures yet. I'm not saying it's not in there. I'm just saying I haven't seen it. But I'm just letting you know the different. If it was shamaraf, it would be talking about categories. You know what I mean? Like not what's the word? It would be talking about categories. Like, all right, you got like, okay, in the world, like if you talk to any like people who do security in the world, like that's their profession. They say when they say, like, we get this all the time in the world. Like when we walk around with our security shirts on, they'll be like, "Oh, you do security? What level security you do?" You know what I mean, it's level 1, level 2, level 3. You know what I mean, and so on and so forth. It's levels to the security. So I'm just giving an example. That if you were looking at the different levels, you know what I mean, or the different categories of shamar or watching, then you would say shamaraf as a categories tense. But because we're talking about past tense in a second person perspective, then it will be shamar tha. All right. I hope I'm making sense. If I'm not making no sense, just stop me and then I'll slow it down, break it down further. All right. Same with he. All right. So this will be third person singular. So me and you are talking about him, he. All right. So hawa'a shamar. With he past tense, with he talking about past tense, it doesn't have conjugation attached to it. So it's just shamar. So hawa'a shamar. So he watched. Right? Hawa'a shamar. She, you're gonna say she watched. Haya'a shamar ha. Right? Same, just how you use it as a possessive. All right? So, Haya'a shamar ha. We should be familiar with this one. This is probably going to be the easiest one because it stands out the most. We, the word for we, again, is anaknoah. Anaknoah is the word for we. I know when we see Noah, we want to say that means we. That's not. You won't look in the dictionary and see Noah in the dictionary, right? It's not a word. It's a conjugation it's a conjugation of a word. It's something that you attach to a word to provide context, all right? So the word for we is anaknoah. Anaknoah. And to say we watched, so we would be a first person plural. So first person singular would be me or I or Anya. First person plural, because I'm involved, I say we, because I'm talking about us, a congregation that I'm a part of. So that's Salaki. That's first person plural. All right. So if you wanted to say something in past tense from a first person plural perspective, you'll say Anaknoah, Shamar Noah. So you just add that Noah at the end of your verb to indicate first person past tense plural. Right? Or it's like past tense first person plural. And then y'all, a thumb. Right? A thumb. All right. This should be easy to remember. You and y'all are very similar. So the conjugation for you was tha. So a tha shamar tha was how you would say you watched. Now, if you want to say y'all, a tha is first person selected. A tha is second person singular. So second person is you. You're the second person, and then plural or like a singular means that I'm just talking to one person. So you and just you alone. Now, second person plural is a thumb, y'all. So it's you and everybody you came with. All right. And if you wanted to say you watched or y'all watched, second person plural is very similar to first person or second person singular. So second person singular was a tha, or it's like you add a tha to the end. Just like atha, shamar tha, to say second person plural, second person is a thumb, or second person plural is a thumb. You just add the thumb at the end, just like how you did first second person singular. So second person singular was a tha, shamar tha. Second person plural is a thumb with a ma at the end, shamar thumb. All right. And then last but not least, you got they, all right, which is third person plural. All right. They, to say they in the Hebrew is hum, right? Not ham, all right? Don't get it confused with ham, the nation ham. The nation ham is hum with a cha, not a ha, all right? Big difference. But hum, and it's not pronounced ham, it's pronounced hum, all right? But the hum is how you would say they. So hum, to say they watched, right? Say they watched is hum shamar wa, right? So you just add a wa at the end. All right, but that's what we went over last week. I'm gonna leave it up here for a little bit, just so brothers and sisters can digest the information before we move on to another lesson. All right, but if you haven't already, go ahead and get it down in your notes. It's good to take a picture as well. Take a picture if you're watching online. Rewind, screenshot, whatever you got to do. Rewind, screenshot, whatever you got to do. But also write it down in your notes because, I've seen too many times where brothers will take a picture of somebody else's notes or take a picture of what's on the board or take a screenshot and then that picture or that screenshot gets lost forever. You never go back to it. There's no way for you to revisit it. And because of that, there's no way for you to retain the information. So the best way for you to retain the information is for you to have your notebook. Have your notebook, take the screenshot if you must, take a picture if you must, but make sure you go and revisit that picture or screenshot and then write down what you got in that picture or screenshot into your notes so that now you can retain it. And if you forget, you have a notebook that you can reference, I mean, to jog your memory. All right. Where we at? All right. But that's what we went over last week. All right. Let's get back on. Now we're just gonna go in the Bible Hub and just read. All right, like we've been doing for the past couple weeks. So lock you. But for the past couple weeks, we've been reading out of Bible Hub. We've been reading what we're going to be reading Sabbath service, which is excellent practice. I recommend all brothers and sisters, do that. Just take a peek at it. Practice. It would be excellent if you could read all 45 verses. It would be excellent if you could read all 45 verses before you get to Sabbath service or Lashawan Qadash class. That would be excellent. That would be great for you. I recommend it. But, I know brothers got lives and things like that or whatever. So if it will be extremely helpful to you if you could just read like maybe 4 or 5 verses. Read 4 or 5 verses in the Lashawan Qadash so that you can get a preview of what we're going to be dealing with. Practice just reading the language. And, as you get better with reading and recognizing the language, then you might be able to go up to, 6 or 7 verses, and then, 10 to 12 verses, 15, 20 verses, so on and so forth until you get to the 45. All right. And then after a while, it'll become easy because this is an easy language. It's a lot here. But that's what we're going to be doing tonight. All right, we're going to be going into the Lashawan Qadash, into the what we're going to be reading during Sabbath service. And we'll just break it down line by line. All right. And when we reading, Salaki, as I share my screen, Salaki, but when we're reading, the reason why we go over these concepts is because, like I always say, like when you're reading the Lashawan Qadash, you're not reading letters. You're not reading characters. Like a lot of times, like brothers and sisters, like I was talking about before, we'll just read each character one by one. Especially when you early on, when you first learning the language, you want to read each character one by one. Which is good practice. It's good practice to identify each character, but you're not reading the language. All right. So when you're reading the Lashawan Qadash, you're not reading characters. You're not reading character by character. You're reading concepts. All right. So when we was talking about Shalamah, King Solomon's name, that's a concept. It's a root word. It's these 4 steps that we was talking about on the board. The first, you got your root word. You identify your root word. You identify your prepositions. You identify your possessive. Then you identify your tenses. No particular order, but those are the 4 steps, right? Those are the 4 steps. And so when you're reading the Lashawan Qadash, you're just reading concepts. So again, Shalamah, right? That's just a root word with the possessive at the end, right? When you read the Lord's Prayer in the Hebrew, Abba Nawa, right? That's Abba, the root word, with a possessive at the end, Noah, which means we. So, or our. So Abba, Father, Noah means our. So our Father, Abba Nawa, right? That's a concept. Shabbat Shemayim. Shah means which. Ba means in. Shemayim means heaven. which in heaven, right? Our Father who art in heaven, or which in heaven, right? But when you're reading Lashawan Qadash, you're just reading concepts, all right? And this is just another concept that you can add to your belt. So when you see it, or when you talk, like when we read it in English, which is what you want to do, what you want to get in the habit of doing, especially Friday night. As a matter of fact, let's go ahead and read in the English real quick so that we got the context. And that's something that you have the advantage to do if you prepare before Friday night. Now, if you're trying to prepare Saturday when you got to read the Lashawan Qadash, especially if you're a priest, you know what I mean, you're going to be underprepared. All right. But if you because we read the Hebrew first and then we go into the English. So you're gonna be underprepared. You're gonna have you know what I mean, you're only gonna have partial context. All right. But all right, so this is the book of Genesis, chapter 23 and verse 17. In the field of Ephraim, which was in Machpelah, which was before Mamre, the field and the cave which was therein, and all the trees that were in the field that were in all the borders round about were made sure. Verse 18, unto Abraham for a possession in the presence of the children of Heth, before all that went in at the gate of his city. 19, and after this, Abraham buried Sarah his wife in the cave of the field of Machpelah before Mamre, the same as Hebron in the land of Canaan. 20, and the field and the cave that is therein were made sure unto Abraham for a possession of a burying place by the sons of Heth. All right. So now we know the context, right? We just read 4 verses. Now we know the context. So last week, you know what I mean, during Sabbath service, we went into a couple things. Just to keep it in, I don't want to, you know what I mean, do no review over Sabbath service, but basically, you know what I mean, Sarah just passed, right? And Abraham is trying to, you know what I mean, he wants a particular place to bury his wife. And he had to bargain with the, you know what I mean, or he had to kind of politic with the nation that was, you know what I mean, that owned the area where he wanted to bury his wife. And they, you know what I mean, they gave it to him. They granted it to him. So now what we're about to read in verse 17 through 30 or 20, Salakia, is him you know what I mean, getting that land, them granting him that land. All right. So that's the context. But you read the context, and if you, like, for example, what we just went over, if you read in the scriptures, and he did, and he watched, and he laid, and he buried, and he this, that, and the third, in past tense, then you can look out for any of those concepts that we just reviewed, from how to conjugate verbs in past tense. All right. But all right, so with that, let's go ahead and break this down. All right, so this is the book of, so first of all, Salaki, we in Bible Hub, as we always are. Go ahead, open up Bible Hub. Make sure you go to interlinear. When you open up Bible Hub, go to the last option, which should say interlinear. Go to book, chapter, and verse. We're in Genesis chapter 23 and verse 17. All right, Salaki, 1 second. We're gonna get into it. All right. Book of Genesis, chapter 23, verse 17. Wayakum Shada Iparo 1, Salakia, Ashar, Ma Salakia Bama Kapala, Ashar, Lapanya, Mamara, Ha Shada, Waha Ma'ara, Ashar Bawa, Wakal Ha Itaza, Ashar Bashada, Ashar Bakal Gabawa, Sabayab, Salakia. All right, from the top. It's a lot of you know what I mean? It's a lot of Let me switch the, let's see. All right. It's a lot of, you know what I mean? There's a lot of concepts. Again, like I was saying before, reading the Hebrew is reading concepts. So the more concepts you know and understand, the better you'll be able to read the Hebrew and understand and pronounce the Hebrew. All right. There's a lot of concepts that we've already been over, a lot of root words we've already been over. Salakia. Let me get to the right verse. Salakia. Chapter 23. Salakia. I went to chapter 20, chapter 17. Salakia, bear with me as a good night. What's going on? Salakia. 23. Got you. Okay. Salakia. Forgive me for that. All right. That's the correct verse up on the screen. Salakia again. All right. So again, we just reading concepts, and it's a lot of concepts we've seen before. It's a lot of root words we've seen before. We gonna break it down. All right. So from the top, waya. All right. Quam. Right. That waya at the beginning. Let me go ahead and highlight that waya at the beginning. You're gonna see a lot. You know what I mean? Wa as a preposition means and. Ya means he. So waya typically means and he, or it's an indicator of the qual stem. You know what I mean? I believe the qual stem, if my memory serves me correctly, the qual stem is a stative stem. So it's just the most commonly used stem, and you'll see we'll do a lesson on stems as well a little bit after we get this past, and you know what I mean, this past tense and present, or we'll go into future tense next. But once we get past, present, and future under our belt, then we'll do some lessons on stems. But you'll see waya often, right? It'll either indicate and he, it'll either say and he, or it'll just be an indicator that something is being stated, right? And this is a history book, right? So the scholar, or Slacky, the what's it called? I just had it. The people who take the notes, what are those? The scribes, Salakia. The scribes are stating what happened in history. So a lot of times when you see the stories unfold, for lack of a better term, the history unfold in this Bible, the scribes are stating what happened. And then this happened. And then he did this. And then this. And then this. And then this. You'll usually see other stems, like causative stems. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I believe there's like 6 stems in total. But you'll see other stems and tenses and things like that, past, present, and future tense, things like that in dialogue. But if it's not dialogue, usually it's just a qual stem, which is just a stative stem, which means something is being stated. So again, it's just saying, and this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened. The scribes are stating what happened in history. All right. So that's what that waya means. We should be very familiar with that waya because you see it all the time. You can't get away from it. We're probably going to see it in the next verse. All right. If not the next verse, the next chapter. All right. But so that's what that waya is. Quam is the root word. So quam is a root word that means rise, right? Rise, right? That's one of the root words that we went over in the what's it called? The pictographs that we went over. Can't remember what it was. I think it was maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. But that's again, you know what I mean? The more concepts that you know, the more these lessons that you know what I mean, invest your time into memorizing, or you know what I mean, the more classes that you participate in, the more concepts that you're going to know, and the more confident that you're going to be in reading the Hebrew because you understand what you're reading. You know what I mean? That's the goal. You know what I mean? And once you understand what you're reading, then you can start to speak the Hebrew, because the ultimate goal is conversational Hebrew. All right. So for us to be able to have conversations in the Lashawan Qadash amongst one another so that we can officially get our oppressors' language out of our mouths, we want to get these concepts under our belt so that we can understand what we're reading, so that when we speak it, we can understand what we're saying and what's being said to us. All right. But it's going to start with those little lessons. You know what I mean? Those little lessons that we do throughout the week. So you could check out, if you want to stack up on those lessons, you could go and just kind of comb through those past classes. They all got the titles of what the lesson is about. So if you want to learn about a particular lesson, you can just look up ISUPK Lashawan Qadash, whatever concept you want to understand. All right. If you're in Killeen, you can go to ISUPK Killeen Lashawan Qadash, and it's gonna pull up all the videos that we've done since, you know what I mean, we started teaching Lashawan Qadash in Killeen, right? And then you could get those lessons under your belt. And it's a really small thing, you know what I mean? I know it may sound discouraging. It may seem like a lot, you know what I mean, what I'm asking you to do, but it's really a small thing. These lessons are small, you know what I mean? And it's a lot of videos because we take our time breaking down these lessons, breaking down these concepts, answering questions, asking questions, getting participation, making sure brothers and sisters understand as we're teaching, so that we're not just up here just, you know what I mean, talking with, you know what I mean, to no avail, you know what I mean, in vain. So those videos, you know what I mean, they up there. You can go ahead, comb through them, get these lessons under your belt, get these concepts under your belt, so you can understand things like this. So again, what I got highlighted on the screen is Wayaquam, and he rise, or he rose. So this is again, this is talking about Abraham getting authority or possession over, you know what I mean, this land, right? So before this land belonged to this nation, but he, you know what I mean, he went to that nation and asked for it as he was a guest, or as it says in the scripture, he was a stranger in their land. So he went to them and he was like, hey, I need to find a place. I'm a stranger in this land. I need to find a place to, you know what I mean, bury my rib, you know what I mean, who just passed. And, you know what I mean, this right here is talking about how he got authority, or he got possession over this land. All right. So Wayaquam, and he rise, right? Shadda, right? Shadda is a root word that we also should be familiar with. Shadda means field, right? If you don't have it, like I was talking about before, you know what I mean, I recommended that brothers and sisters just keep a running list of, you know what I mean, root words that are commonly used, root words that you know what I mean, you see often in the scriptures. And well, I ain't gonna go into that, but yeah, that's what I recommend brothers and sisters do. Like, if there's a word that you see often in the scriptures, you know what I mean, you're not gonna be able to write down every single root word that you see in the scriptures. You'll be there all day, and then you're not gonna retain any of it. I'm just letting you know. But if you start with the words that you see often, you know what I mean, over and over, then you'll be able to retain certain words, so that when you see them later, like a good place to start with that is Genesis, the first chapter. When it talks about the creation story, it says it uses a lot of simple words. You know what I mean? But that's where I would recommend brothers to start, in the creation story. So the Most High created the heavens and the earth. You'll have the root word heaven, and you'll have the root word earth. And then light, darkness, you'll have words like tree, earth, or tree, ground, water, sea. You know what I mean? What else? Beast, bird, things like that. You know what I mean? That's a good place to start, because you're going to see those words appear over and over in the scriptures. All right. But Shadda, you know what I mean? That's one of those words that you're going to see often. All right. Shadda, field, Shadda. All right. Next one is Iparawan. Let's see what that means. All right. Remember, when you add one to the end of a root word, it makes it a proper noun. All right. And usually the names of cities, the names of countries, lands, things like that, they come from root words with one at the end. Like let me see, what is it? There's a river in the Garden of Eden called Gihon in the English. Gihon. In the Hebrew, it's Gakwan. Gak, right? Which is another root word from one of our past lessons. It's a body part. It's belly, right? Belly, Gak, right? Ga and Kha, Gak. And then Wan just makes it a proper noun, meaning that this root word is being used to name something. All right. So Gakwan meaning belly, right? Which is the attribute that river has. You know what I mean? Like you know what I mean? Like a woman who's, you know what I mean, pregnant, when her water breaks, water flows out of her belly, right? And that was the attribute that was used to name that river. But when you see Salakia, but when you see one at the end of a root word, you know what I mean, that's what that means. And it's usually used to name a person, place, or thing. All right. So Salakia. So the point was to figure out where this comes from. All right, so let's see. All right, for time's sake, to find out, and this is, as a matter of fact, you know what I mean, we got time. Let's see. So just for the sake of the lesson, right? Just for teaching's sake. All right. So the word is ipar one. Like we just talked about a second ago, we know that one is indicating, you know what I mean, a name, that is a proper noun is being used. All right. Or something is being used as a proper noun, rather. All right. So now the only thing, now that you know that one is the suffix or the tense that's used, now you know that the root word is ipar, right? There's no prepositions or anything attached to the beginning. There's no tenses in the middle. It's just I, pa, and ra, right? So now to find out what this word means or where it comes from, or get an idea rather, you could just go to your Hebrew to English dictionary. You can go to your concordance. Salakia. You can go to your concordance. You can go to your Hebrew to English dictionary, and Salakia, and look up IPAR. So you go to the section of the dictionary, I, just like any other dictionary, and then you look up IPA. Salakia. Salakia. All right, so I, and then you go to the portion that says IPA. And if you got like I was telling brothers before, I recommend brothers get on Kindle and download your Hebrew to English dictionary on Kindle. Like 3 years ago when I first recommended it, I believe it was like a couple bucks, no more than $5. But the price might have gone up. But regardless of whether it's $2, $3, $5, $15, or whatever the case is, I recommend brothers, you know what I mean, put that money aside and go ahead and get that. I mean, it's going to be an excellent tool for you to be able to understand your language and your culture. All right. But Salakia. All right, moving on. So if you go into that Hebrew to English dictionary, it'll you can click on the Hebrew character I, which, and also knowing the I wish I could pull it up here. I don't know if I got to purchase it. But you know what I mean? If you look on the as a matter of fact, let me see if I can pull it up on the camera real quick. Salakia. And I just wanna make this, I just wanna lay this flat so that you can understand how to use this tool. All right. Let me see if this will focus up for me. Salakia. But I don't know if you can see that, but you got your 3 dots up top, right? You know what I mean? Your 3 dots up top is going to take you to your Lashawan Qadash alphabet. And if you look, it's going to give you the Yiddish or the Yiddish to English translation. So this is what I looks like in the English, or it's like in the concordance, or it's like in the dictionary, the Strong's Hebrew Dictionary of the Bible. You see like what looks like a comma, all right? But this is where knowing your Lashawan Qadash alphabet is so important, because this is the first character of the alphabet, right? Concordance code 1 to 871. That's Ah. Character words that start with Ah. So even though the character Ah, it's not up here in the Assyrian or the ancient, but you just got to know the order of the Lashawan Qadash alphabet. So that's why when I get on brothers and you know what I mean, and urge brothers to be able to say your Lashawan Qadash alphabet from Ah to Tha, this is when it becomes essential, because this isn't an Ah, this is just a comma. You know what I mean, but you just got to know this is the first character of the alphabet, which means it's Ah. Then goes Ah, Ba, Ga, Da, Ha, Wa. See, the Wa is a V, because your these fake Jewish, you know, or these imposters, you know what I mean, who put on your culture, they call it a Va. They call the Wa a Va, right? But you gotta look at the Hebrew alphabet and know that this is a Wa, right? Za, Cha, Ta, Ya, Ka, La, Ma, Na, Sa. You see that Sa? It looks like a C with a accent underneath, or whatever the hell you want to call it, right? Then I, right, which is the part of the dictionary we're about to go into in a second. I is like an apostrophe, right? Remember that I at the beginning was a comma, right, in the dictionary when you're looking at it digitally. But this I is represented by an apostrophe, all right? But I know that's an I because I comes after Na and Sa, right? Just knowing your Lashawan Qadash alphabet. That's why it's so important. And I, Pa, Tazah. Tazah is represented by a T and an S next to each other. Kwa, Ra, Sha, and Tha. All right. Right. And then you want to note that the Tha is just a T at the end, or represented by a T. The Ta, which comes earlier in the Lashawan Qadash alphabet, is like a T with a dot underneath. But I just want to show y'all that so that y'all can be familiar with these characters and just know how important it is. You know what I mean? For you to understand, for you to know. That's why I say you want to practice Abba, Gada, Ha, Waza, Khata, Yaka, Lama, Nasa, I, Pata, Zakwa, Rashata. Know it by heart. So when you go into the dictionary, this dictionary can be useful to you. If you don't know your Lashawan Qadash alphabet from A to Tha, this dictionary ain't going to mean nothing to you. You're not going to be able to use it. You know what I mean? But we're going to click on this I, right? And then you'll see the Hebrew characters pop up. So just like a dictionary, it's I, and then it goes from Abba, Gada, Hawaza for the second character as well. So I ba, I na, I, or Slakia. Yeah, I, or Slakia, I ba, I ga, I da, I wa, I za, I ta, I ya, right? You want to go to, we're looking for I believe Pa, I par is the word we're looking for. So then you click on I Pa, and then it's going to bring up the dictionary. All right. I par means to be gray, or perhaps rather to pulverize, used only as a denominative from Concordance Code 6033, to be dust, to cast to dust. All right. So let's see what real quick before we come to an inference, right? Now this is just an inference, all right? It's just a guess of what Iparwan means, or what its roots are. All right, so you go to 6083, Ipar, dust, clay, earth, mud, ashes, dust, earth, ground, mortar, powder, or rubbish, right? That's what I just read here. Salakia. I didn't even know you could do that. But yeah, I just highlighted it. Most High in Christ. All right. So now remember, Salakia. With that being said, the reason why, you know what I mean, the reason why you know what I mean, it's good to do that, you want to so that you can this is where your question gonna come from. And remember the context, right, of what we're reading. The reason why this name or it's like Abraham named this land was Ephraim was because he was trying to bury his wife here. You know what I mean? And when you know what I mean, when you bury somebody, they return to the dust, right? As the Most High said, and I believe it was Genesis early on, like the third or fourth chapter. But you know what I mean, when you bury somebody, they return to the dust. Ipar means dust, right? And this, I believe, later on, if you once you read further in Genesis, this is where so we're talking about Abraham here. So Abraham buried Sarah, right? And then I believe Abraham passed, and then Isaac, if I'm not mistaken, buried Abraham in the same location. And then read further on, Isaac passed, and Jacob buried Isaac in the same location. This was where, you know what I mean, our people made a tradition of, you know what I mean, burying the dead, right? Where they could return to the dust, which is what Ipar means. And Ipar one at the end of it just makes it a proper noun. All right. So it just indicating a place where, you know what I mean, you return to the dust, essentially. Now that would be the inference that I would make. Of course, you know what I mean, as a diligent student, you would want to ask the, you know what I mean, the men above you. You know what I mean, as I will. That's just the inference, you know what I mean, that I'm gonna make as of right now. And then when I go to the men above me, I can ask them an educated question that shows that I'm not just, you know what I mean, shooting from the hip. You know what I mean? I'm doing research. I'm using what I know to try to extend my knowledge. You know what I mean? I'm doing my due diligence as a student. I'm not just sitting on my hands and, you know what I mean, depending on the men above me to spoon feed me. I'm reading, I'm studying, I'm researching so that when I bring this question to, you know what I mean, the men above me, they can see that's what's going on. Because, you know what I mean, again, just to reiterate, you don't want to just, you know what I mean, of course you want to lean on the, you know what I mean, the men above you, you know what I mean, ask them questions, but also you don't want to just, you don't want to expect to be spoon fed. You know what I mean? We all are, you know what I mean, priests in here. I mean, if you got some zeros behind your name, you are a priest, and you have a responsibility to, you know what I mean, teach other brothers and raise up other brothers up under you. You know what I mean? You have that zero behind your name means that you have a certain level of responsibility. So with that being said, you want to be doing research. You want to be doing your due diligence as a student and also a teacher. You know what I mean? To make sure you are honing your craft and doing what you got to do to learn your, you know what I mean, your culture. You know what I mean? So you want to do things like that, like what I just showed you. All right. And then once you bring that to the men above you, then you'll get, you know what I mean, you can get a more you get a more in-depth answer. And at the beginning, Salakia, before we move on, at the beginning, a lot of times, like when you're a new student, you know what I mean, when you learn to learn in the culture, you'll learn the basics, you'll learn the milk, you know what I mean, as the scriptures indicate, or as the scriptures say, you know what I mean. Paraphrase, you want to learn the milk first before you go to the, you know what I mean, the heavier, the meat, you know what I mean. But you want to start with the milk, and then after that, you know what I mean. Again, this is a school, the Israelite school of universal practical knowledge, right? So you want to then after you get the, you know what I mean, the basics, the foundation. Once you want to further your understanding, then you'll start to. We'll teach you how to use the resources. You know what I mean? Especially in Lashawan Qadash class. Like I just taught you how to use the Hebrew to English dictionary. I'll teach you how to use, teach you what books to read, what resources you need, the biblical Hebrew workbook and textbook. Salakia. The biblical Hebrew workbook and textbook, the concordance, the you'll learn the resources and how to use them, things like that, and then you just go from there. All right, but and then once you learn how to use the resources, then you just use that to learn further and then ask your questions. All right, but all right, let's move on. Let me flip the screen real quick. All right, so Iparwan, right? Next word, ashar. Ashar is a word that we should be real familiar with. Means that which pertaining to, things like that. Ashar, that, which is how it's used in this particular context. Ashar. Ba Makap Salakia. Makapala. Ba Makapala. So Makapala is the name of the place near Hebron, right? And then Ba is a preposition meaning in. So in Makapala, right? Which is what you see in the English. Ashar, same thing, that, right? La Panya, right? Panya is a root word, right? A root word that means face or before, right? La means to, right? La Panya means to face or before, right? To face, memory or Mamara'ah, right? To face Mamara'ah, right? It's talking about this place in relation to another place. All right, so this place is near Hebrew or Salakia. Salakia. So this place, Ephraim or Ipar 1 is in Makapala or Makpala in the English. That faced Mamre or Mamara'ah, right? So it's just giving you a geographical, reference point, of where this place is. Next phrase, Ha Shada, right? So we just talked about before in this phrase, Shada was the root word that stood alone. Shada means field. So Ha Shada is just the root word Shada with a preposition on it. So Shada's field, Ha means the as a preposition. So Ha Shada, the field, which is what you see in the English. All right. Just a couple more. Waha Ma'ira, right? And the, right? And before I click on the concordance code, I just want to, show you some logic. Waha is the prepositions, right? Waha means and the. You see in the English, it says and the, right? So you can only assume that Ma'ira means cave, right? Now I'm going to see if my assumption is correct, right? Click on it. Boom. A cave, right? So language is easy. It's not rocket science. You just know these concepts, and knowing the concepts is going to help you understand. That's how you read the language. You're reading concepts, right? That's just an example. I just wanted to show y'all that. Ashar, again, that. Bawa, in. Ba means in. Wa means it. He, his, or it. In this particular context, it means it, right? You see down here, in it. Bawa, in it, right? Wakal, right? Wa means and. Call means all, right? The root word that you should be familiar with. Call means all, right? You see in the English, and all. Well, call means and all, right? Next phrase, ha, itaza, right? Like I was talking about before. Itaza is a root word that you should be familiar with from reading Genesis, the first chapter, all right? The first and second chapter. You know what I mean? Which is where the creation story is. You know what I mean? The trees were created, you know what I mean? And all the seed after their kind and things like that. So you'll see the word tree there, you know what I mean? And moving forward, you'll see that over and over. So Itaza is tree. Itaza, right? You know what I mean? So when you see it in the Lashawan Qadash, when you see it in the Bible Hub, you don't get confused or tripped up. Itaza is tree, right? Or you don't have to pause and try to read or try to pronounce or try to, you know what I mean, sound it out. You just know from sight, tree is Itaza. So whenever you see tree in the English down here, you know you're going to see Itaza, right? So Itaza is the root word. So now what do we got before the root word? A preposition. Preposition ha means the, right? You see it right here in the English, right? The trees, ha Itaza, the trees, right? And from the looks of it, from how it's being used, uh, to say tree is Itaza. To pluralize it, it would be Itaza still, right? Just like sea, you know what I mean? To say, or water. To say water is mayum. To say waters, plural, it's still mayum. This is what you would call an irregular plural. You know what I mean? Usually, the most common way to pluralize something is to add yum to it, right? Sometimes you'll see wath. Sometimes you'll see tha, like we was talking about a second ago. But the most common is yum, right? But you won't see this at the end of itas that are pluralized. It's like you had something.
So how would we know the difference? You know, when it's talking about like the example you just put, water and waters. How would we know the difference?
Just context. So like in Genesis, like in Genesis, it said the Most High separated the land from the sea, or the land from the water. So if it's just talking about like water, just in a general sense, like water, like I got a glass of water, it'll be mayum, but you'll know that it's singular because of the context. Like I got a bottle of water. Now, if we're talking about waters, like bodies of water, it'll be mayum still, but the context will tell you plural, because now I'm talking about like when in Genesis it says he divided the waters from the waters. So just the context, to long story short, that's how you know the difference. Next phrase, ashore, that again, all right? Ashore, that's one of those root words that you're going to want to burn into your memory, because you're going to see it over and over and over again. It's a what's it called? What do they call it in English? A conjunction, I believe. But it's just a word that connects, you know what I mean, that connects sentences, that builds sentence structure, for lack of better, you know what I mean, lack of better term. So ashore, that, you know what I mean? You'll see it often. It will behoove brothers to get familiar with that word. Let's see. Bashada, all right? Bashada. Same thing we was looking at earlier. Earlier, the word for field was shada. Then we saw hashada. It's shada with a preposition in front of it. The field, hashada. Now we got bashada, right? Ba meaning in, shada meaning field. So in field, or in the English, in the field. All right, Salaki. The next, ashar, again, that, right? Next phrase, bakal, bakal, in all. Ba means in, call means all. So bakal means in all, or in the English, within all, right? Right? Means the same thing. And then gabalwa, all right? I've never seen this root word. I'm not familiar with this root word, but based on context clues, right? Based on what I'm looking at and based on using what I already know, I can assume that this word means borders, right? Because I'm looking at the English down at the bottom, the borders, right? Wa is a possessive at the end, meaning it. So the borders of it, right? So we're talking about the borders of this field, right? So wa means it. So I can only assume that gabal means borders. Let's see if I'm right. All right. Gabal. You look at gabawal. You know what I mean? Is the root word. Remember, when you add like prepositions, possessive tenses, things like that to a root word, a lot of the time that wa in the middle drops off, which is why when brothers and sisters say shalom, it is incorrect because that is not how the language is spoken. You know what I mean? Every chance I get, every chance I get to prove that shalom ain't a word, I'm gonna go ahead and step on it. I mean, because brothers really got to let go of that. Just like you got to let go of your indoctrination that you learned in the Christian church and in the Muslim mosque and things like that. You got to let go of that shalom. I mean, that's not proper for you to use, man. And that's how you indicate, you know what I mean? That's how you separate fake Israelite groups from brothers and sisters in the ISUPK, which is the home of the truth since 1969. All right. But that's where that concept comes into play. The root word is gabawal, right? But to avoid confusion, when you add prepositions, possessives, tenses, you know what I mean, that wa drops off, right? So gabawal or gabal used in this context is border, boundary, or territory, like I was saying before. See, a lot of these words that you can learn just based off of context clues, just using what you know, using those 4 steps, and then doing a process of elimination. Like, all right, I know this at the end means it. You know what I mean? So this, and I also know that a root word has 2 to 3 characters. This has 3, and ga is not a preposition. So I know that this ga isn't a preposition. I know there's no preposition before it, so that just leaves gabal. You click on the concordance code, you check your work, you check your inference. You know what I mean? And make sure you're correct. Right? Last one. Sabayab. Sabayab. All right, let's click on this. Let's see what we got here. All right, Sabayab just means circuit, roundabout. All right. All right, circle. Sabayab. That's how you would say circle. Right? Sabayab, I believe. Khan. I haven't done a lesson on shapes. I remember watching one. I remember I believe Officer Hazahab did one from headquarters. I believe Officer Yagrum did one as well. Officer Raul Bond out of UK. I mean, them brothers are some solid brothers. They definitely studying. I mean, shout out to them brothers. But they and they do they do these specific lessons on these concepts. You know what I mean? They do these specific lessons on these specific concepts or these specific categories of root words. So doing these lessons or learning learning root words and organizing them in categories. Like we did colors. These brothers did colors. I didn't personally do colors. I might later. But you know what I mean? These brothers did colors. We did numbers. We did ordinal numbers. We did cardinal numbers. We did body parts. We did did the Lord's Prayer, took the root words out of that. We did the prayer for the power, the hakat in the Hebrew, and took the root words out of that. What else? You know what I mean? Shapes, like we're talking about right now. But these, knowing the like, just if you dive into these little specific lessons, these little lessons, it'll help you. It'll give you an incentive to learn root words, and it'll help you. It'll make it easier. So you're not just trying to remember root words aimlessly. You can categorize them. Like, okay, I know these shapes. I know these numbers. I know these pictographs. That's another one. You know what I mean? I know these, like we were just talking about when we went over past tense. How to what's the word? I don't know how to categorize this one, but how to say I, you, he, she, we, y'all, they. You know what I mean? That's a category of root words that you can learn and add to your belt. But you know what I mean? If you go to any of these brothers in any of these zones, you go to any of these lessons from any of these brothers in any of these zones that teach Lashawan Qadash, you can find the lesson on shapes, and it'll tell you that Sabayab is how you say circle or around, right? Because if you surround something, you're making a circle around it. Like in a second ago when we read in Genesis, when those disgusting, them disgusting people in Sodom and Gomorrah compassed round about Lot's house trying to get to those two angels. They made a circle, they made a perimeter, a circle around this brother's house. You know what I mean? But all right. All right, so we're gonna stop right there. You know what I mean? Just to reiterate, you know what I mean? So to recap, we went over the past tense. We went over how to say I, you, he, she, we, y'all, and they. We went over how to conjugate these verbs based on the context of who we're talking about and whether it's past, present, or future tense. Make sure you get these concepts under your belt. You know what I mean? As we're reading the Bible Hub, and it's excellent that we read in the Bible Hub because it opens up concepts. You know what I mean? You might see a concept that you're not familiar with. You're like, what does this mean? And then now we can revisit a concept or a lesson that we've already went through. We can direct you to where you can find an in-depth lesson on this concept so that you can come up to speed and so that we can, be all on the same page. All right. But learning those concepts, remember, we're not learning, we're not learning, word by word. We're not learning, letter by letter. The best way to learn the Hebrew, in my opinion, I guess I'll say, is learning these concepts. And then when you go in the Bible Hub, you'll be able to see these concepts, and then now you'll know how to read it. All right. All right. With that, I'm going to say Imadium, which means to stand. I'll give a courtesy salute to the brothers in Israel. Imadium Shabbat. Imadium Barak. Yahweh Shem Yahushua Barakathon. Yad Yamata. Sor. We'll turn to face the sisters. Give a courtesy salute to the sisters in Israel. Imadium Shabbat. Imadium Barak. Yahweh Shamar Alathan Ba Shem Yahushua. Yad Yamata. Dismiss.